You are listening to the Spent the Rent podcast.
Who's that guy?
And now, here's your host, Patty Rose.
Hello, I am Patty Rose. My guest today is a dear friend, Lea Jones. Lea, welcome to the show.
Hey, Patty.
So we're going to talk about some tough stuff today, but some fun stuff, and we're going to have a good time. Thank you so much for being here. We've been friends now for, 10 years. Really, it started at the beginning of this podcast. Early on, I reached out to you because I had seen you perform at the Willamette Valley Opry at Willamette High School.
Oh, yeah.
100 years ago. And so I instantly became a fan. I got dragged to that by an ex-girlfriend. It was random that I saw it, but I was totally blown away by the stuff you were doing. I knew there was a lot of talented people in Eugene, but sometimes you just don't know how to find them or the right nights or cross paths. And so I'm a big fan of your style of music. It's different than a lot of stuff I'm into, but I mean, there's a couple of your tracks that I've just thrown on my main playlist, so right. It's awesome stuff. So tell me a little bit about yourself, first of all, for the audience that's listening that may be unaware, and then we'll get, going with some of the health stuff, but just tell me about your music stuff first.
Oh, my music stuff. I started writing not so long after I started working on playing guitar, which was after I got out of high school. And I wrote, 50 or so songs per the maxim that you have to write a whole bunch of songs and just throw them away.
Right.
And then you start writing good ones. And I got to the point where I could write pretty good songs and I moved up here to Eugene in 75 and fell into a house that had a band already built into it.
Yeah, and I'm sure that was happening quite a bit in that time.
Yeah, It's like can't swing a dead cat around here without hitting a good musician. So
right. So it's funny you said that you should, the right way to do things is that you should make a bunch of songs and then throw them all away. I instead have made a bunch of songs that I should throw away and then just uploaded them. And then I make them so that people can hear them. And if you'd like, you can check out Patty Rose on Spotify, or you can check out, I think I looked, and for right now, you have stuff under the name Buffalo Romeo, because that's a duet or a group that you're part of, a duo group that you're part of.
That's on Bandcamp.
But it's also on Spotify and Apple and all that stuff. Yeah. But Lea Jones, we'll work on getting you some stuff under just you for your solo stuff too. But that's for a different day. So you had some things that you wanted to discuss with the public. Is that correct? I worded it that way in my notes, and it sounds so ominous. But
yeah, it is. That's ominously put. I would agree.
Ominous. So you have some things that you would like to discuss with the public. It sounds like it's going to be like To Catch a Predator or something.
I don't know. Did I say that?
I said that. I wrote that, and it seems like I should have wrote it better. But that's
try AI next time.
Sure. Okay. So you reached out to me and you said that you wanted to talk about a few things. You wanted to talk about communicating around cancer, and I kind of understand, but in your words, I want to hear what you have to say about that. What do you mean by that?
Okay. Well, a little background before I dig into that. I had a kidney transplant, polycystic kidney disease, through the early thousands, and in 2008 had a kidney transplant, and then went on anti-rejection drugs, which it lowers your body's ability to fight off things, but also makes it so it doesn't kick the kidney out, right. And so they tell you don't be careful in the sun when you're on these drugs. And long story, the first real cancer I got was on my lip, and I had to do a thing called a Mohs surgery. I'm going to take this off.
Sure.
I had to do a thing called a Mohs surgery, or they did, where they cut down and they look at the sample, and then they cut down some more and look at the sample. And I did 4 layers deep on this lip, which caused all sorts of problems with my voiceover work and drooling because I had no nerves right there. I had a little trough. And so that was my first bout. And then I was getting a knee replacement in 2020, right at the start of the COVID mess, and found out I had urethral cancer and bladder cancer. And here's where, one of the little lessons, I guess, if we want to call it that, from came from. I had a nephrologist here in town, the kidney doctor, who didn't want me to do any chemo for any reason, and so that limited me to immunotherapy, which I also can't do because that makes your body's immune system kick in
Right.
and threatens the kidney.
Sure.
It's the
It
opposite
makes it
of
work
taking
harder.
anti-rejection
Yeah.
drugs.
Yeah.
So all there was left was surgery and radiation, which
Sure.
we did surgery. I had a delicate, to put it delicately, a urethral surgery that I didn't talk about. And that's as far as I'm going to go with that anyway. And also a bladder, they took this little tumor out of the bladder, and then I had a year's worth of bladder chemo, which was pretty harrowing. How they get it into your bladder is
Sure.
know,
through your eyeball.
Yeah, I do it through your eyeballs.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I had that. Well, when they did that urethral surgery, and then the subsequent lymph node surgery, they didn't follow those up with chemo because this particular nephrologist said, no chemo, because I only have one working kidney, and chemo can knock that kidney a kilter, and so I just incidentally asked around to a few stray nephrologists who came and visited me, or I happened to, call up incidentally or something. And I heard, well, yeah, actually I've done chemo on patients with a single kidney, a transplanted kidney, and it's gone fine. And so I started going, well, wait a minute, is my doc the only one who's not letting me get chemo?
Right.
And so let me preface this with saying I am lucky to have a package of insurance between Medicare and Medicare B, and my wife's Federal Blue Cross.
Yeah.
From being a mail carrier, and so I can get almost anything paid for.
Yeah.
And we pay up front for a little, several $100s a month, but
well, you earn it. I mean, that's
a pretty
that's
good.
the way we earn those things. I mean,
I suppose so. Yeah, but nevertheless, I'm real lucky and have
fortunate,
excellent coverage.
Yeah.
And
which
and
is
so
good.
I said, I called up OHSU, which is kind of the premier, not kind of, it's the premier medical establishment, teaching university, in Oregon and the Northwest, and it's recognized as such. And I got the person who did the urethral surgery and the lymph node surgery was up there just because I wanted maybe a better surgeon, and my urologist scared the hell out of me.
Right. I can't imagine.
Yeah. Waiting rooms have been one of my studies.
Sure.
Because
and sometimes they try to have a sense of humor. Like, I don't want to.
Cancer. Humor is like absolutely.
It works at times, but it is funny because different issue completely, of course. But the guy that owns the barbershop I work at was going to get a vasectomy, and he said that his doctor was like, I call it the scorched earth technique, and he's like, well, don't call it that. Actually, I'd prefer that you didn't call it that.
Yeah,
it would make things better. But sometimes the sense of humor is good. I had a nurse one time. He was a older, bigger, heavy set guy, and he looks at me and he goes, it was so funny. He goes, not to get off track, but he goes, I had a muscle strain. I was in the shower, I stretched and it hurt. And I was like, oh, is that my kidney or is that my whatever? I was worried. So I go in, it was just a muscle strain, but he looks at me and he knew it wasn't bad. So he was joking with me and he goes, the only thing I could recommend for you is suicide. Oh, God. And I was like, dude, you should turn my chart around. I mean, I spent the night in the Johnson unit like 5 months ago. And I mean, I talk about that publicly because none of us are immune to that, to the mental health part of it. And I think we'll get to that part of dealing with cancer, but because we want to talk about communicating around cancer. You've been super public about sharing your personal story, and we'll get back to the details in a second, but which is amazing, first of all. And I love your snark and the way that your attitude is because you're honest and you're human about it. And so anyway, by that, just let's hear more about it. So you had the Dickie Doo and the I don't want to be disrespectful. Me and you have a relationship. Anybody listening needs to know that we have a relationship where we can joke about it. It's a lot. You've been through a lot of checkups, a lot of visits, a lot of zapping you and different things. And so, what's the hardest part about communicating about it with your family? I mean, do they overreact? Do they underreact? Is there a way that you want them to react or
Oh, my
expectations?
family got way too much information when I first got diagnosed. I was writing them like group emails and spewing about everything,
Yeah,
but I wasn't doing my platform is Facebook.
sure.
I'm a 60 something at this point. I don't use those labels because I don't think people my age use those labels, and I don't think very few people my age know how old somebody Gen Y is.
Sure. Or,
So
I
it's
mean,
like,
it shouldn't
give
even,
me an
yeah,
age range, and it's much more useful information. Uh, but at any rate, after overburdening my family with all the details and my less funny uh, kind of musings, um, I started easing into it on Facebook, um, I've been on Facebook, as I mentioned to you last night when we were talking. Kind of H.L. Mencken was the guy from the Baltimore Sun that I was thinking. So I feel like I've been kind of blending Will Rogers and H.L. Mencken for years, plus my own unique.
are those robots? Are those people you mentioned? HR, who was it?
H.L. Mencken was a journalist who was quite caustic.
Is that in the time that people talked like, hey, see? No, no.
He was writing in the 30s, 40s, and
See, yeah, it is the
50s.
time. It's right before Shane
Yeah.
Gillis says
And
it's
Will
right before
Rogers.
it's right before Jackie
Will
Robinson.
Rogers was before that, and he was a folk hero.
So these are inspirations and people that you're
these are kind of guys who I end up, I think, sounding like sometimes.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know in terms of my Facebook persona if I have influences per se.
I mean, it's interesting because I think that the whole social media setup is designed to make us feel like we do, but I think we do because obviously people engage with stuff and you have interactions, and you're somebody that will challenge status quo, so that's going to get attention, and positive, negative, whatever.
I like to gripe.
Yeah, but that's healthy. I mean, I say it all the time on the podcast, and why I like why you and I have a good friendship. I think that we both can see ourselves in each other in different times in our lives. It's scary for me because it's like we're before and after, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before and after. No, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean that sounds so harsh, but it's true because I know that it's been cool to get to become friends with you, and it's really through social media, a lot of it, because we're all pretty freaking lonely because we don't hang out in big groups of people anymore because of COVID.
I'm not really a very social person when it gets right down to it.
Neither am I.
I play music, and I love playing music now solo. It's like I've been in bands for years, but I was a solo national new song finalist in 2004 around my George Bush bashing phase. If you want to look up Those Fish Needed to Be Shot, somewhere that album exists, by the Swing States Roadshow.
Yeah.
Double album of all the things we recorded live and in the studio.
Yeah, you talked about that before, about going across the country.
Yeah. Played in 7 states and made CDs, and all the proceeds went to Democratic causes over those years. Didn't do any good. But 2006, we retired because that's when the second album was called House Cleaning, and that was when Congress flipped, and took the power away from
maybe
the shrub.
Maybe we can talk about the train wreck that is this current Congress at the later in the show.
Oh, let's not.
So
that's depressing. Okay, so the cancer thing. I mean, before we jump off of my story about the history, the lesson. I'll just cut straight to the lesson because we seem to be in a hurry. I will say that. To the extent that people who are have any qualms about the care and advice they're receiving, go out of your way to get a second opinion.
Absolutely, and it's good to hear.
Most recently, we bogged down on yet another choice between 2 treatments, one of which was immunotherapy, which is like, your kidney could go and then you'll be on dialysis. or this other thing that nobody thought would work. And I'm going, well, and so I finally lost it, and I called the Cleveland Clinic, where I had a little bit of contact before, and requested an oncologist meeting, and got one, but they thought I was going to show up in the office, and I thought it was going to be a virtual. But in the meantime, my oncologist here got on the horn with that oncologist there, and that oncologist there said, why don't you try the one thing that worked, which was the platin and Taxol thing that I got 2.5 years ago. That was the first time my hair fell out. The photo you used on your podcast, opening of me, was the second time my hair fell out. And so we just started this infusion of Taxol and carboplatin 3 weeks ago.
Wow. Yeah.
And which is basically what I went up to OHSU and did 3 nights in the hospital, like 3 injections, and then 2 injections the next night, and then infusions, and then 2 infusions the next night. And, walked out of there feeling like a beat dog. And by the time I had gone through my 3rd round of that, we went back up there, had the labs, before, in the morning, and they said, "No, you're done. If we do it again, you're going to die." So,
wow. Yeah,
which is scary. The point. The point of these drugs is to
get you right to that point, but
get you up to the edge and then pull you back. So, but that was the one that worked. And so this doctor in Cleveland was the one who came up with it.
Yeah, it just sucks that you have to go to Cleveland.
Well, I didn't actually have a real meeting.
Good. That's good.
I can't really say what happened here, but the doctor said this phone call didn't happen.
Yeah, wow.
And
that's cool to put on the public record.
And then called my doc,
sure,
my oncologist. They had a conversation, which you're allowed to do. It's like a peer consultation, it's called. And I also called down to Florida. HML Anderson, I think it's called, one of the other huge cancer institutes in the country, and they said we got nothing, So, but fortunately, my doc talked to Cleveland, and we found what I think is by far the best solution. I don't like having my hair fall out; it pisses me off.
It came back.
I just grew it back.
This is the tough thing that we're talking about. Communicating around cancer, and one of the things that I've learned from having a good friend that has fought tirelessly, or for many years, she's fought cystic fibrosis, and she's had a double lung transplant, right?
65 roses, yes,
yeah, and so double lung transplant, both lungs out, and then new ones in, and wow, and yet, shout out to Molly, by the way. I've talked about having her on the podcast at some point. And, when she goes in for surgeries, which happens frequently, still always, you just kind of assume it's going to be okay. And this is where family and friends and loved ones just assume that it's going to be okay because, and this is kind of where we're at with you, Lee, that you've been going through this a long time, and so how does it change for you in different moments? I mean, because do you always know that there's optimism? No,
absolutely not. When we were like down to those last 2, possible courses of action, I was going, if I do either one of those, I got it in my lungs now.
Yeah.
It's squamous cell carcinoma. And that's that just moved out of my lymph nodes recently. Because we did a number of like marginal treatments, one of which made me itch and made my hair fall out, but didn't do anything. So you're in this course of action that lasts any number of months, and then you do a PET scan or a CT scan or both, and you find out that it advanced while you were doing that.
Yeah.
Now in medicine, you never know what causes what. You never know what causes what.
Right. And you mentioned that doctor that was, really wanting to hold off on chemo.
He wanted me to die with a healthy kidney. That was
which isn't good.
That was the running joke.
And I mean, I would ask it. I guarantee that there's a lot of frustration with doctors and different times, and sometimes it's warranted, sometimes it's not. Would you say that like a lot of times the caution though It's like we talked about getting a second opinion. It's just very important to get multiple opinions on things like
Eugene's
this.
a small town.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
it's a
you got to
parochial,
know.
you know, your parochial doctors are not necessarily going to, number one, have access to the clinical studies, and number two, or know about them,
Yeah.
and number two, are going to tend to be a little bit perhaps more cautious than doctors who are at places like OHSU.
Sure.
And that's proven to have been the case. I mean, I can't say that's always the case.
Yeah, no, it's just one of those. It's an issue with healthcare as a whole. I mean, it's just one of those gaps.
So, do you know people who?
No.
How many of us? Let me just make it more of a rhetorical question. How many of us know people who, when they are finally terminal, finally let it be known that they have cancer and they're going to croak?
Yeah.
You know
how many? I mean, you mean a lot of times we don't know until the end is what you're saying?
Yeah. Nobody says any. I mean, people just they go underground. They go into hiding.
Yeah.
And I don't have anything bad to say about that. I mean, the way people deal with this, you know, just horrible news, frightening, terrifying news in many cases. That's like personal choice.
Absolutely. You know? And how private somebody is. I mean, social media is, you know, like my partner, she chooses not to be public about just basically every detail of her life. She'll post pictures of kids sometimes, which I'm like, that's actually the one thing you shouldn't do. But no, I mean, yeah,
to me,
you can handle it how
the stigma of cancer is still gigantic. And the tendency for most people is, I would say most people, is to not talk about it much or at all. Just kind of go underground.
Well, and so I've been saying this a lot lately, that, and I'm still workshopping this, so this is not, I don't know how to exactly get it through, but there's two things that we really need to do in life. We need to see ourselves in others. That's important, but we also need to be able to separate ourselves and see just the other person and their journey, if we're going to really show empathy and feel empathy. And what I mean is that, like, you know, when young people, specifically people that are experiencing youth, which I'm only 42 or whatever, I am 42, whatever you want to say, only whatever, young or not, I've been having some serious thoughts of mortality as well. So when you hear cancer and you're at different points, you know this, at 30 years old, 25 years old, you're like, nope, I don't want to think about my mom dying.
Right.
You know, and now that I've lost my mom and my brother and I don't know if I want to say it too much publicly, but I mean, even with, you know, my stepmom has battled with cancer as well, you know, and my dad has had many tests and biopsies and all these different things to make sure that it's not, and rule that out. And so the point is he's dealt with a lot of health issues as well. And so when you hear these things, a lot of people tend to clam up because it's painful and it's hard. But I do like your approach, and I think that it's inspiring to, we have to talk about everything.
I don't think,
but it's up to each individual.
We have to do that.
But it's up to individuals, because I know that through recovery, the most important thing that we can do is by just being an ear for each other, and being understanding that we're on both sides of it. You being on my show talking about this helps me, because I get to help you by giving you a platform, and it's a beautiful thing that we get to share with people that can relate to it. So that experience is amazing, you know, and just being your friend and in hearing and talking to you about it in this form makes it almost easier for me, because it is tough even for me, because I want to make jokes about it, you know, because I worry about one day something, you know, I mean, we're all gonna be gone one day, you know, I mean.
So I came up on this last decision point right before we got in touch with Cleveland, where he basically, my oncologist basically said, well, if we don't do anything, I'm pretty sure you won't die within the month.
Wow.
You know,
that's pretty
assuring. And that was like, well, you know, you put a time. That's the first time anybody put any kind of time thing on it, and that was daunting, to put it lightly, you know.
Yeah, and
that's what that spurred me to.
And at that time, I mean, how are you feeling? I mean, I know you're beat up and just dragged out, stamina's low, fatigue, all that stuff from chemo and that kind of stuff, but still, how are you feeling? Are you, and this doctor's telling you this while you're like, just like, I'm getting through life? I
was getting over the last treatment at that point, and we had gotten the PET scan, and it was like, not good.
That's got to be the hardest thing to hear.
It's terrible.
When you're like, I actually am healthy feeling.
I mean, when you're going in for these PET scans, and the only thing that's going to happen is either you get a sense of vague relief or you get hammered, you know, but there's never any great news. I mean, well, I guess there can be, but for me, it's been like, okay, well, it's not as bad as it could have been.
Sure.
So I started talking about it probably 2 years ago on social media, on Facebook exclusively. That's my platform. That's where I hang out. And my name is Lea Jones, by the way. Lee rhymes with flea and all the other EA words in the English language. I generally give that speech at the start of my shows. And then I started talking about it at my shows a little bit because, well, why am I sitting down? Why is my voice going like this? It's like, well, I just started talking about it.
Yeah.
And definitely not for sympathy. I've got no interest in sympathy.
But it connects with people, and I think that the vulnerability and the honesty and the transparency connects with people, and I think people authenticity.
I've spent most of my adult life trying to become more honest and transparent.
Right, me too, and that's why me and you, people like us, were drawn to each other. So
yeah,
totally. So I want to move on a little bit because we have a lot to talk about. We'll bounce back and forth with the health stuff. First of all, before we move on,
let me finish,
please,
and then we don't need to come back.
Okay,
to the health
please
stuff.
go ahead.
Getting real close to the end of this. This segment.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of relatives and friends who have gone through or are going through similar challenges, and most of them choose not to air it out very much.
Yeah.
But almost to a person, these people are saying, Lee, I'm glad you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's like inspiring and sorry, I'm losing it over here.
No,
I mean, that to me is like, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't feel particularly brave to me. It feels just like what I'm about, but people appreciate it.
Yeah.
A lot of people have said they appreciate it, and I haven't heard anybody that didn't, and if, feel free to keep those cards and letters coming in, folks. But no, it's I don't view it as setting an example exactly. I don't think about it that way, but it's been gratifying to be able to. I mean, did you see the picture that we did at the last 16 tons where the laying on of hands? We did the ancient tantric technique while my hair was still in after the first treatment, and we got everybody up onto the stage area with me, and everybody put their hand on my head, and if they couldn't, they put their hand on the head behind a person, and it was called hair stay put. And we did a 1, 2, 3 hair stay put, and it didn't work, but it was really fun.
Sure.
It was really fun, and that felt really good to me.
Yeah.
Because it was like a tangible, it was a tangible thing.
Right. And I know you that it's got to be everything, even the hardest things have to be light. And even when I'm going through a lot, that's the reality. We have to be light about it to an extent. There's a seriousness at times.
You have to be. I mean, it's a choice. Some people can't be light about it, and it's my pleasure to be able to be bring a little, I don't give a.
Well, that's the truth. I guess it's not always light, because a lot of times you'll approach it just like, here's what I'm going through, and it's not good. But I like that. I love how you handle that, because there's a truth to just, I mean, I don't, this sounds so ridiculous, but I remember one time I posted on Facebook, it was honest truth. I'm like, it was during the COVID stuff, but like I bought Dutch Bros and dropped it. It's the dumbest thing, right? But when you're going through something, it doesn't matter how serious it is to the individual. It could be, I don't want to compare dropping a Dutch Bros to dealing with cancer, but my point is that
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Oh, no, like
it has to do with stocks.
No. So there was a
dropping
moment,
a cup of coffee.
I bought a coffee. I had no money. I had no money to my name. No money to my name. Buy a coffee, immediately drop
and then
it.
You drop
and
it.
then you just immediately, and it's like sometimes there's these moments.
How did you handle that?
I know it was the worst thing I had been through. No, I mean, it sounds ridiculous. My point being is that I know, but
I understand.
The point is that in the moment you think about how low things can get. Right.
Yeah.
And then you have these other realizations.
Oh yeah. Here's like this other guy
yeah. You're like, how low I could be. I mean, I have nothing's going my way.
I get you now.
And it's the most ridiculous
dropping your
reality.
cup of coffee.
Yeah, no, because it was,
man.
I felt deflated
That was
afterwards.
hard.
Hard
really
stuff.
Harsh reality.
I mean, I got another coffee, but like,
that's funny.
yeah.
Okay, thanks for explaining that.
So let's talk about the tipping forward thing. You gave me a flyer. You told me that that you're going to read every detail on the screen. So let's put that on the screen for anybody watching, and then you can tell me about this event.
Oh yeah. So I've been playing on the patio at 16 Tons Cafe. Our first venue was Buffalo Romeo was playing up in Oak Ridge at the Brewers Local Union, which was a pub, English style pub, run by a wonderful man named Ted. And we played up there once a month, basically for a couple of years. And that was our crucible when Keenan was like 16 and 17 years old. Ted was giving him beers, which he thought was amazing.
That's legal if you're a musician.
It's legal if you're a musician.
Actually, that's probably in trouble.
And ultimately, our home base became the patio at 16 Tons Cafe up next to Market of Choice in South Eugene on Willamette there. And we played there every summer, spring through fall, for years, once a month or so, and just had these intense jams. And that space to me is by far the best outdoor music space for a small scale concert of anywhere I've been for such a long time. The acoustics are excellent. There's shade, which brings up the Coppertone Bake-Off Challenge.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a minute.
And the bands, they've never been able to afford big guarantees there because it's really just a coffee shop that sells beer.
Sure.
And the patio out front is gigantic. I mean, you can get 150 people out there if they bring their own chairs. Everybody can sit down. And like I said, the acoustics are bouncing off that glass, and it's just gorgeous. And it went under new ownership in the last, I don't know, year and a half. I can't remember. And this last fall, when I wasn't really able to play, I lined up a series of solos. It was called a solo songwriter showcase, and went fishing for songwriters so the new owner could meet, Friday after Friday after Friday, meet these other soloists. And a couple of them have now started playing there. And again, it's like the budget for this place is for solos.
Sure.
It's okay if you're a solo to take the kind of guarantee they give, because they also give a merch card where you can drink beer for free for the next, 6 months, depending on how, or get, sandwiches or whatever.
Sure.
It's like $100 in merch, right? So that's not so bad. And the South Eugene crowd, my crowd, are tend to be over 50 years old. A lot of them retired, and a lot of them have enough money that they can throw down a $20 tip and not even blink.
Right.
So Buffalo Romeo could walk out of there with $400.
Sure. Which is great in Eugene. I mean,
it's amazing.
The most I've ever made in a show is $250.
Right. Right. I mean, yeah, and we would do that regularly, but that scene, there were so many jams there, and it was just like, transcendent, the crowds in it and the bands in it, and there stops being any differentiation between the crowd and the music. It's all the same thing, and that is just amazing. And so I decided somehow, I don't remember exactly how I made this leap, but the idea was these guys that you have up on the screen, they are called the West Coast Blues Doctors. And I know all of those people. I don't know Jerry Gleason very well, and I don't know Theo Halpern. We've crossed paths, but those are the guys on the two ends. But the people wearing camouflage, Mike Tracy's is he in the black there on the Mike Tracy hugging Ruth Tracy. Mike Tracy is like a beast of a harmonica player and a lead singer, and blues is his main thing. He is sensational, and she said she's getting the idea of doing blues, and she sings duets with him. They sang in the Tracys together for years. So and Skip, but Skip Jones on the piano. He's like a boogie woogie guy, but he also kills at the blues. And Jerry Zybeck plays bass with these guys. Jerry Gleason on the far right in the in the jumpsuit is a tremendous guitar player who plays several different styles, including blues. And so I was like, why don't we see if we can just raise $200
Sure,
in
just
order
make
to
it worth
add to
it.
the pre-existing guarantee that the 16 Tons Cafe can afford, and all those perks, and then all the potential tips. But just get our friends to throw down $200, so that we can guarantee that this band can come in.
Right.
And I was talking to a new friend, Dave Villalobos, who for years has been running
Pedal Power Music.
Pedal Power Music.
Dave Villalobos, yeah.
Dave Villalobos. Did I say Villalobos?
Vila Lobos. He's listening. I'm sure he's cringing.
Yeah.
No,
Villalobos.
Dave is a good friend of the podcast. He's been on the show multiple times. Pedal Power Music.
Right.
He brings a solar rover to kind of show how you can generate power from solar
Bicycles.
Energy and bicycles and different stuff to run a stage, and it's really cool. I mean, it's not 100% without electricity, but it's pretty close, you know.
Right,
and
right. I pedaled one of those bikes once with 6 other people powering a
Pedal
PA,
Power
so.
Music is a great thing to check out in Eugene. So you're doing.
He's kind of not doing as much music, I guess, these days, and he was kind of like following my hijinks online, and
he's doing a lot of comedy, actually.
We were bouncing off each other online, and had some discussions, and decided to get together, and he came over to my place and we talked. And so he's actually coming to tonight's show. I'm playing over at 16 Tons solo, but with my friend Dennis Smith and with my friend Paul Friedlander dropping in.
That's good to know. I can't go then because I have a restraining order against him.
I'm
just joking. It gets all serious.
That show's at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I have a restraining order against Dave. So
16 Tons Cafe tonight at 6 o'clock. Anyway, Dave is supplying a pair of big mains.
Yeah.
And I promised him I'm going to give you one feed, and it's going to go into your main, and then your main can go over to your other main, and we'll just do this thing. And then he said one of these tipping forward, we're calling it, the thing with the blues doctors. He said he could do one of these tipping forward things, particularly if it was on a Sunday night, because he wants to provide a sound tech that's not him. Mm-hmm. He doesn't like to run the sound. He likes to provide the PA. He says, so I can bring a sub,
sure,
and I can bring the big mains, and we can mic everything, and a tech, but it would need to be on a Sunday night because there's all these festivals and whatnot, and all my guys are working festivals during the summer.
Right.
And so this thing on the 26th of July, that is, it was one of my Fridays. I just gave up one of my Fridays to the Blues Doctors because I really wanted this patio to have music. And I'm getting bored of listening to myself play, frankly. I mean, it's like once a month is plenty. And I had two gigs that month, and I just gave this one to the Blues Doctors because they could fit it. Dave probably won't do sound on that one because that's a Friday.
Sure.
But we're talking about Joanne Broband's coming in early September.
I think that's her
on
husband.
Her
husband comes into
night.
Our barbershop. Robert, her husband, comes into our barbershop.
On a Sunday night, and we should easily be able to raise, the requisite, 150. Awesome. So we basically offered to reserve tables for 4 for anybody donating $20 or more. So we've reserved 4 of the 5 possible tables already. We were already halfway there, and it only started like 3 days ago.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like, let there be songs to fill the air.
That's
what it's
awesome.
all about.
So let me throw this back up there one more time. So this is
his PayPal address available behind that?
No, I'll drop it off.
There you go.
So you can go to paypal.me/Michael Tracy 326. That's Michael TRACEY 326.
Yeah.
And so paypal.me/Michael TRACEY 326.
And you can send in. I mean, we're gonna get another 20 for that last table, but people can send in $2. They can come to my show tonight, and I'll have a separate bucket for just this tipping forward thing. And people can throw in a couple bucks here, a couple bucks there, and we'll get to 200.
That's rad.
But let's do it sooner than later.
We did this back in the day. My buddy Josh put a show together at the Wow Hall, and he was like, I really want to bring Del the Funky Homo Sapien. And so he put together a couple local shows to raise enough money. And it was during the time when the Gorillas was blowing up, and it was amazing because it was we couldn't believe that we actually pulled it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everyone has a price. It's the truth. I mean, you can get people, really talented people, to come and do your stuff. And so these are friends of yours, but still, it's like,
yeah, I mean, like I said, these people are going to come in if this band was there.
Yeah.
Awesome. They'd make several $100s in tips anyway. Sure. So it's like, just get it up front, tipping forward.
Right.
So, and lots of other folks are going to come with the people who have already donated. So there will still be tips to be had. And God, I mean, to me, I'm really excited about it. It seems to be working.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Anybody that wants to listen, you can go to Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff.
Lee Jones on Reverb Nation.
Reverb Nation is a good one.
Lea Jones 2.
You can Google Lee Jones, just Lea Jones, and find a bunch of stuff too.
Yeah,
just links to different music. So you wanted to talk about an event that's happening this summer, this September. It's the 2024 Coppertone Stage Bake-Off Competition. Explain to me what this is.
Oh, well, this has to do with this lip cancer and certain places that I have played over the years where, some clubs are run by either recovering musicians or people who really love and understand music. And some clubs are run by people who don't fall under either of those categories. And you can always spot which one is which.
Right.
Because like the Covered Bridge pub down in Cottage Grove is now closed. So we can besmirch their name with impunity. They built a stage that faced directly southwest.
Right.
And there wasn't enough of an overhang to stop the sun from just blasting the musicians. We played there once, and Keenan and I, and that's what this is about. The Saginaw Vineyards has a stage that faces directly southwest. I used to complain loudly about Sarver Winery out toward Veneta for moving their stage off of the upper level because it blocked the doors, which I think is bull, but and down so that the setting sun hits the band right in the face. And they put up these tents, but the sun comes under the tents, and the tent only holds 2 people anyway. So they're having a 5-piece band out there for Father's Day. And I posted on their Facebook page. I'm not afraid to just go in and, raise hell.
Right.
You are
something that people just don't think about.
You are a candidate for the 2024 Coppertone Stage Bake-Off Competition.
Right.
And right now, the leading candidates are, number one, Saginaw, because they've had that stage there for 10 years, frying musicians since 2012, maybe 2014. Sarver says they're working on it, but so far they haven't done anything. And the Dexter Lake Club, if you're a solo, you can hide behind this one little strip of shade way off to one side of the stage. And there's more, I hope people contact me with the names.
Yeah. So if you've played at a venue and you've ended up in the hospital with a sunburn, send us an email at patty@strpod.com, and we will we'll make fun of the people that did that to you.
Yeah. And it's not funny. It's like, it's dangerous.
No, it's not
you
funny.
Sweat, your instruments get all sweaty, and
right.
your acoustic instruments really don't like that
So,
UV
I mean,
radiation. You
I
know?
do believe that that's probably the worst thing. So you believe that it attributed to some of your issues, which with cancer, like with the exposure to the sun and the performing those shows.
My susceptibility to skin cancer was certainly taken advantage of by that.
What is of a memory for performing, separate from cancer? But what is one of the most wild experiences like of you getting almost hurt? I have one I can tell, and then you can have one until
go ahead.
I was performing at
first.
I was performing at the Black Forest, and
which one?
Doing a solo, the one on 11th Street, but by the bus station, doing a solo hip hop set, like a 25-minute. Oh my gosh, it was awesome. We used to play there all the time, and I was doing like a 25-minute hip hop set, and I was trying to fade out with the mic, so I kind of like pulled the mic away, and when I came back, I just hit myself right in the nostrils, both right in the middle of my nose, with both or in both nostrils with the mic, and I was bleeding from both nostrils, and I was
that's punk.
I was like, I got to keep going, and I was choking, and I made it through 1.5 songs, and people were like, this guy's hardcore, and it was pretty fun. And then I was like, this is a 25-minute set, I'm gonna do 15 minutes, see you later. But have you ever had any experience like that? Have you fallen off a stage?
Well, let me tell you, I'm glad you asked me that question. We did have a gig one time where the roof of the stage, you were playing in a little box, which is what Sam Bonds is like, by the way.
I love Sam Bonds.
I'm glad you do. And me being 6'5", and you get to the end of the last song and you jump up, I just jumped up and crushed my head on the stage on the top of the 7-foot ceiling there. But the best story, we were up at the Mackenzie Bridge,
the community
brewery,
center,
I guess.
Sure.
Yeah. And they have a really nice scene up there, and they guarantee a large amount of money to bring bands up.
Did you play at my event? I don't know if we were talking at that point. They not to cut you off, but the Unity in the Community tour, we did it at Blue River Park, which has obviously been decimated, by the fire. Right. But man, what an experience. That Mackenzie River community is amazing.
Nice. Yeah, I know. It's nice up there. It's great. And the gang, came out. We were playing on this. They have a new stage now, which they blamed me for making them build. But they had the original stage was, I'll draw it like this. Here's the audience. Here's the stage. It's like flat across the front and then beveled on the corners and then parallel like that. And so there's that bevel part. And then there was a step below that. So it gave you this vague visual sense, if you weren't looking at it, that the stage went out, to where the step was.
Right.
And so we were playing Ghost Riders in the Sky.
Right.
And jamming in this middle section. And I stepped back with my left foot and caught that beveled edge of the stage. My trick ankle just went over.
Oh, man.
And I just keeled completely off the stage. I managed to spin in the air, fell on my back.
Nice. With
my guitar on my chest, missed the bench of a picnic table apparently by this much.
Right.
Which would have, knocked me cold probably or killed me. And kept everybody playing. The whole place just went dead,
Kept playing. Yeah.
And Keenan, I said, Keenan, keep playing.
Yeah.
And so he started playing the rhythm again. I'm going, Jesus, I'm not dead. Okay. I got up and went back up and we finished the song.
That's it.
Everybody got up.
That's it.
Standing ovation.
That's it. No, it's
then the next time I went up there and played, the manager, this lovely young person, said, "Oh, you're the one who made us build a new stage." It's like, yeah, right. Yeah.
No, that's it. That's
tested for unsafeness.
That's right. Yeah,
unsafe at any speed.
Where's your favorite venue indoor? I talked about the Black Forest. Where over the years in Eugene is there still an existing venue outside of the ones that you play a lot that you love? I mean, you said 16 Tons is kind of your home.
I don't play a lot of venues. I mean, no. I don't have the energy or the interest. I don't need to be playing unless I want to.
Have you? I mean, I'm sure you have, but the Wow Hall I love performing in the Wow Hall. The sound is so awesome.
I mean, I was in a band in the 80s.
Yeah.
Late 70s, mid 70s through the early 80s called Slow Buck.
Yeah.
And we were like kind of the number 3 band behind Wheatfield and Turkey Run.
Right.
And then there was Slow Buck. And then there was Mythrander and some other groups that were all also big draws. But we played at Murphy and Me's, which is down on Franklin there, and that was like you got 4 nights. You came in and got a gig for 4 nights,
Wow.
and there was a little cover charge, and people would come in and dance, and it was a riot. It was a great venue.
Was that like where the basketball court is now, kind of, or
no? It's on the other side, kind of where the I can't. It's kind of right across from, just down from Agate a little bit,
Sure.
Toward the west from Agate on the north side of the street. It was back set in there a little bit. Yeah, there were famously high times at Murphy and Me's, but that was that closed down a very long time ago. Indoors. What's my favorite? What's a good setup indoors?
I actually really enjoyed Sam Bond's performing there, and then we did a lot at Lucky's and a lot of the just dive bars. Lucky's is just so many good memories, but yeah, we were doing small shows because we never got a huge draw outside of our circle. I mean, it was 60, 80 people that would go, and that's pretty good in Eugene. That's a nice
crowd.
Yeah, I mean, we were told at the Black Forest that we had the highest drinks per head count of any bands that's ever performed, and I was like, it's mostly the performers.
Dubious honor, I think.
It's us, and so it's like we were buying beer, and I felt like it was. That's the only reason I made music is because it could go back in my pocket somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyway, let's talk a little bit. I thought we would have to talk about basketball because
as well we should.
There's so much going on in the basketball world, and I know that one of the things that you talk about a lot on social media is your love of basketball. I would ask you first before I get into any of the main stories, because I want to give you a chance to kind of go where you want with it. When I say the word basketball, simply just right now, when I say the word basketball, who is the first person that comes to your mind?
Today, Jerry West.
Jerry West. Okay, so that's timely for sure. And that Jerry West and Bill Walton both, I want to talk about their legacies for sure, because Bill Walton also, these guys pass in the same week of each other. I think that Jerry West was 86, is that correct? And Bill Walton was 72. Point is that Jerry West is the logo of the NBA. Right. So I mean, he is.
I went to a John Wooden basketball camp when I was in high school.
Wow.
I turned 17. I wouldn't say grew up. I turned 17 in Pacific Palisades, California.
Yeah.
The little white enclave, very white privileged enclave. It wasn't upper class at that point. It was kind of solidly middle class in the neighborhood we lived in. But I played a little bit of basketball in high school. I wish I'd played more in junior high so that I would have, when I joined the JV right out of nowhere, had some sort of background. But I sprained the trick ankle was sprained in 10th grade basketball. I really loved basketball, and I could shoot. I had a killer outside shot, a big long range jump shot. I can't get off the ground.
Yeah, basketball was always tough for me because I'm 5'9".
I know, right? I did stuff a volleyball one time. I have very short legs for a tall guy, but basketball was something we did a lot of the time down at my friend's house. He had a hoop on his driveway that was a good solid hoop, and we played a lot. And but yeah, I was a Bruins fan.
Yeah.
From the time Lou Alcindor showed up,
later became
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and they changed the rules of basketball so you couldn't dunk.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know this now. That if you go back and you watch the highlights of UCLA, that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and then later Bill Walton would just set the ball in, like they would just set the ball in.
They couldn't jam it. And John Wooden came up with this stall thing. There was no shot clock. The shot clock also came about because of John Wooden, because they would get a 3-point lead, and then 4-point lead. The Bruins we're talking about, who won like 11 championships,
right?
Many of them just consecutively. They would just go to this 4-corner thing and not run the ball, not do any plays. Right. They would just stall.
You know who broke their streak of consecutive wins though in the regular season?
Houston.
The Ducks and the Beavers both.
Oh, okay.
Beat them 1 and 2. Yeah. After like 86 wins in a row or some crazy.
Right. Well, John Wooden, I believe, was retired at that point, and Walton was no longer with the team. So yeah, the inevitable rise and fall of the
that was a lot of
Bruin Empire.
So my dad and Bill Walton went to high school together. So Bill Walton is the one that I would probably think was, I mean, as a Celtics fan and as a Blazers fan, I started with the Blazers in '95. I became a Celtics fan because I kind of jumped ship when they traded Drexler.
Yeah.
And I was learning more about my Irish roots and my grandpa from being from Ireland, or from Boston and then Ireland by way of Ireland. Danny Ainge being from Eugene was also somebody that I thought was kind of cool and scrappy. And so I've been a big Celtics fan for a long time. And so, the stories, it's like the Lakers and Celtics stories intertwine so much that it's like a Stockholm syndrome, where Jerry West hates the Celtics, but his story isn't complete if you don't mention the Celtics.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Bill Russell and the Celtics,
and
were the bane of the Lakers' existence for, Wilt Chamberlain, when he was with Philadelphia, got beat by Bill Russell so many times.
He moves west, and then he has to face him even more. And then,
yeah. And then the Magic and Bird years, where for the most part, Kevin McHale was never one of my favorite guys.
Oh no, he was dirty. Robert Parrish, they were enforcers, and then they were. Well,
Parrish
team.
was a little less of a hack, but yeah, the Lakers and the Celtics, and I used to hate teams, and I used to hate Derek Jeter because he was a Yankee.
You don't have to explain that. That's an understandable thing,
right? I don't even hate Tom Brady anymore.
Yeah,
I certainly don't hate the Celtics. I mean, what a waste of
energy.
Did
you watch the Tom Brady roast?
No.
Oh my gosh, it was a lot.
Why would I?
So we talked about current basketball. The Celtics are playing. My beloved Celtics. This year's team is probably my favorite team of all time. It probably is my favorite team of all time. And in '95, I was thinking about it the other day. '95, when I kind of started rooting for the Celtics, my brother, who's older, I was always copying him. He was a Bulls fan. I started rooting for the Celtics because I wanted to have a team with a history. Well, since then, they've only won one championship in 2008. And so this year, with my boy, Peyton Pritchard from the University of Oregon, I've cut his hair. He used to get his hair cut at the barbershop. He's amazing. He hasn't, I think he's only hit one shot in the series, but
that's notable. That one.
But he's playing good defense, and everyone on the team loves him. And I cannot believe that this team was able to add Drew Holiday in the offseason. But I got to say, even though Porzingis has gone down, Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen have doing what they're supposed to do. I shit you not. When I watched Jaylen Brown this year, and I've been saying it for the last couple of years, he keeps reminding me more and more of a young Michael Jordan. And in this last game, everybody's talking about Tatum. The last two games, he struggled with the shot. And it kind of reminded me of Pippen back in the day. Pippen could hit threes all the time, but he's not known as a shooter. He's a long defensive guy that would facilitate and do everything that needed to be done to win. Scottie Pippen, which is one of the top 20, probably top 10 players of all time, Scottie Pippen. Jason Tatum has that same kind of mold. Anyone that's not a fan of basketball can say, oh man, that guy sucks, or that guy can't get it done. You're not watching the series. Your team is not up 3-0 when you're the two team leaders, unless you're incredible players.
Yeah. I haven't really watched much of the series.
You watch a lot more women's basketball, correct?
I watch, I follow the Ducks, where they go in pro sports. So I have become, for instance, a LA Chargers fan, which is exceedingly.
Is that a football team?
Yes. That's Justin Herbert.
Oh, okay.
That's where he went. You might have heard of him.
I'm just joking.
Yeah. It's football. And then Sabrina, of course, went to the New York Liberty,
right?
When the Liberty were struggling to win any games, and she did 2 years, I think, with a young coach who didn't, I think, know what he was doing, but they got good draft picks, and I think they have enough of a budget over there. They were able to bring in Sue Bird. I'm not sure how all this worked, but
sure. And I think they got. I
like watching. Right? I've enjoyed watching Sabrina go through all of the changes that she had to go through to fit into the WNBA. I mean, I saw her just the other day. I don't know which team they were playing, but she was coming up to a screen, and she was leaning into the person who was going to try to come through the screen with her. And right when she got to the screen, she just shoved the person, subtly, but clearly into the screen. so the person screening didn't have to step out and nail this person.
It takes time. It takes time, and you know,
that's an excellent dirty
watching
trick.
the men and the women's games. I mean, Jaylen Brown, watching where he came from. I think he was drafted in 2016, and then Tatum in 2017. And if you watch him today, I mean, the last year, the year before, every single game there would be issues with his handles, you know, and like you're talking about these little sneak plays where during transition, maybe you just kind of like draw a charge, something, whatever you have to do, break something up. It makes a huge impact when your basketball IQ grows, and Sabrina is just incredible to watch. The explosion of women's basketball has been really cool. You told me specifically not to say her name, and we're not talking about Breonna Taylor. I
asked you.
Oh, you asked me nicely if I would not say her name. The rookie basketball player, women's basketball player.
Well, we know who you're talking about
from
now.
Indiana.
So go ahead, Caitlin Clark. Yeah, we're talking about Caitlin Clark.
What do you? So do you? Are you baffled? Are you disgusted and dismayed by her Olympic snub? What is your thoughts? I'm just joking.
What do you mean snub?
That's a setup. That's the way the media works.
What do you mean snub?
I know. she's. But this is so interesting to me because
everybody else on the team is 26 years old. Let's start with that.
And she's getting so much attention as a young rookie player, which is awesome.
That's great.
But it's great for the league. But a lot of the veterans are like, what about us?
You know what I really
We've been doing
love
this a long
about
time.
What I really love about the way Sabrina Ionescu played in college and still plays in the pros is her attitude is all about the team, and it's all about energy. And when she is yelling, she's yelling in, you know, intensity, but she never gets in the face of other players. Never. She helps other players off the floor.
Sure.
I mean, as a practice. And I kind of wish, you know, other players, including
you won't say
who will not be named, could emulate or study that facet of Sabrina's game, because you know, you're talking about setting examples for the kids. You know, it's like yapping at the officials. Sabrina will let it go in the general direction of officials once in a while. I mean, I've seen it in person and I've seen it on TV, but she never like comes up in the face of anybody or, you know, does hand signs or, you know, any of that stuff that most of the rest of the WNBA, and for that matter, NBA, all do.
You
know,
I mean, and it's part of it. There's personas.
Peyton Pritchard doesn't get in other people's faces.
He doesn't get in people's faces,
but he hits the
three-quarter. He's got this move that he does, his wrestling, his finishing move is that he has that three-quarter. It's a set play that they run where they pass him the ball and he comes up the right on the three-quarters court and shoots it at the buzzer, and then he goes, "This is my city."
Right. But that's like celebratory.
It's so funny.
That's celebratory, and it's not showing somebody else up.
I don't know. I mean, there's a balance.
That's what I really don't like about most modern sports.
Sure,
that whole energy.
Yeah,
it's not
there's
male
a balance.
Or female either.
There's a balance. No, and hey, the fact that these conversations now, there's a true fan base that is like more. They're not interested in the NBA. And they're very interested in the WNBA. And that is amazing because there's people that love both. I'm more of I was a child of the 90s NBA. So watching that stuff at that time, it was just the opportune time to fall in love with so many storylines. I mean, it's basically professional wrestling.
Yeah. I mean, the Caitlin Clark has a lethal jump shot off the dribble, which Sabrina was always more of a catch and shoot jump shooter. And had a whole lot of trouble when she used to, you know, because she lost the pick and roll. The pick and rolls don't work in the WNBA like they did with Ruthie, right?
Right.
They lived on that thing. But Caitlin Clark's got this wicked jump shot,
right?
And she can go around a screen and then do the step back thing, and her shot is off the top of her head, opposed to Sabrina shoots off her shoulder. Because she was shooting as a kid and learned that style.
She's like Kobe and Jordan though, and Caitlin Clark is like Steph, you know, like so. I mean,
well, there's not really that many women players who can
30-foot
dribbling away from the basket and then turn around and go up, and
pretty
elevate
impressive and
hit bang. You know, I mean, she's amazing.
It's pretty impressive, and I'm a big.
She'll be a great Olympian 4 years from now.
Right, right. Yeah, so that'll be fun to watch though. There's 3-on-3 tournaments too. There's a lot of fun stuff
Yeah,
going on in the Olympics.
the tall blonde player from Stanford made the U.S. team,
Yeah,
and she's a perfect player to play. You know who I'm talking about?
I'm so bad with I don't follow a lot of women's
Can't
basketball.
remember her name, but anyway,
Cameron Brink or
she
something
was
like that. Is that
Cameron
right?
Brink. Yeah,
Okay.
she's kind of an attitudinal
Yeah.
player, and kind of like threw a lot of elbows. And I mean, she could, you know, maybe she doesn't do it in the NBA because she'd get clocked, you know, but she did it a lot in college. But she's blocking shots and she's getting great stats in the NBA, and she's on a 3-person team. You know, that's somebody you definitely want. So
that'll be fun to watch. I think there's also breakdancing in this year's Olympics, which for the first time ever, it should be really cool. And seeing skateboarding.
There you go.
So before we get out of here, I think that we just have to acknowledge the accomplishment of us having an entire podcast without talking about Donald Trump. And so I just want to give us an applause for that.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to say that I love your posts and I appreciate your openness with your health journey. Thank you for the artist that you are and the friend that you've become over the last 6 years or so. I know that while being praised, it's best to praise others. So I wanted to give you a chance to give some shout outs. So yeah, I mean, I'll just leave it at that and you can take the floor.
Shout outs. Well, my wife,
sure,
she's been going through it for 4 years. I mean, just being married to me for
pre-cancer. I'm sure
10 years.
It was still rough.
The cancer thing has been, this goes back to the question of talking about things. I've been I've listened carefully to my wife's expressed constraints about what she would rather me not talk about, and I pay attention to that, and that question of people in general talking about their diagnoses, especially when it comes to like potentially terminal stuff like these cancers I've got, there's all the loved ones and friends, relatives and friends around the person who's got, who's afflicted, who come into play as well. So it's not like, again, I'm not in any way suggesting that talking about it publicly the way I do
is mandatory or expected
is beneficial for everyone, or that I would, I have nothing but love and support for everybody who's going through life in general, but this particular, it's like life in general is pretty hard,
Yeah, that kind of goes for everything. That's kind of my attitude. It's like handle it how you want to handle it, and try to make it so that we make
I'm really glad to be able to set, I guess, an example for people who would like to be able to share their stories. Because
it helps
it's pretty lonely.
Sure. And it helps you. And I know that and take this as it is, but like I know that when we all use social media because we do need attention, we do need to talk about these things, right?
Yeah.
So now I remember people used to say they're just doing this to get attention, whatever. And I'm like, well, then let's give them some attention. That's our loved one. And so I personally really
you know where the block button is, don't you?
Exactly. No, social media has a lot of negatives, but it can do a lot of positives. I mean, it's really brought me and you close together.
Mm-hmm.
We joke a lot, probably I don't think that we go 2-3 days without talking. And
I'm meeting people in person.
I know
that I've known on Facebook for 5 years. It's like, wait a minute, aren't you? It's like, yeah.
It's like, it's pretty fun. And this podcast has also been a treat in that way that people like Thomas Yuda, and I know that you're friends with Pat Miller, you know, some of the people that are longtime friends of the podcast. And then, sometimes even people that are beyond just me doing the podcast. It's become a little bit of a community and networking ability where people are like, you've done Spent the Rent podcast. So in that note, if you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can go to strpod.com. That's strpod.com, and you can become a one-time or monthly sponsor for the podcast.
Do it.
Lea Jones, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patty.
We are going to go ahead and play a song for the people watching, and I'll put the flyer on, and then I'm going to see if this works. If they scrap it, I hope they don't, but I don't.
It's cafe up in South. Eugene.